All right. Is everybody ready to get this party started? All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. I know that, it's not always easy to get away during the dinner time from your family. So taking the time to come and learn more about the project here and how we're here to help you was very important. So thank you. My name is Joey Fernandez, and I'm with the outreach team with Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District Septic to Sewer Conversion Project. And we're here today to talk about the right of entry process, why it's required, what is needed, and how we can move forward from here. I want to do a little housekeeping before we get started. Restrooms are in the very far back, so if you use a restroom, they're in the back. We do have a little bit of pizza left, so please help yourself. There's some water as well. Just a reminder that this meeting is hybrid, and that means that it's also being live streamed right now online. So I'm going to ask everybody to please silence your cell phones. Right now, if you could just take a moment to turn your cell phones off or turn the volume off. Also, we just ask that you keep the conversations down, because the computer, the microphone out here is going to pick up all of your conversations, and the folks online will not be able to hear what we're talking about. So if you could just please keep your conversations here together to a minimum. We will have some time after the presentation for Q&A from folks online. We're not going to take Q&A here today because we would like to take that time to sign the forms, have you guys sign the forms. However, there will be several folks here in blue shirts around the room that will be able to answer questions that were not discussed during the presentation. So if you have questions, just hold tight and you can ask any of us after the presentation. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. And then also for folks who need translation services, we have headsets in the back. You're free to go grab those right now if you like. There's some headsets, and we're gonna also translate this real quick.
Buenas tardes, disculpa los que hablan español, si hay aparatos que lo van a traducir en vivo todo lo que se haya dicho, y principalmente solo se ha dicho bienvenido, que van a hacer la presentación, que después de la presentación vamos a explicar los formularios y allí pueden hacer preguntas a nosotros o también personas que tienen camisetas azules, pero también en este momento por favor tomen el tiempo de ir a la mesa directamente atrás que tienen aparatos que le va a traducir. Gracias.
Okay, good evening everyone and welcome to our town hall. I'd like to welcome you all and thank you again for joining us. My name is Christina Henry. I am the Director of Community Relations at Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District, and I'm also the project manager for the outreach portion of the program, the Septic to Sewer project. Next slide, please. So today's agenda, we already did the sign-in and registration. Presentation shall last about 30 minutes or so, and then that gives us the rest of the time for everyone to go ahead and fill out those right of entry forms, which will be a very important topic we'll talk about at the end, and ask any questions of all of us that are wearing the blue shirts like Joey mentioned previously. Next slide. So the purpose of our project update today is so that we can go ahead and provide a project overview, provide the benefits of converting from your septic system to EVMWD sewer system. We can also provide you estimated project timelines. Those of you that received information on the grinder pumps, you can actually see a grinder pump live and in person if you haven't already done so outside in the parking lot. You can also ask your questions from a subject matter expert, understand why you need that grinder pump on your property and what that will entail. We're also going to go ahead and talk about what's going to happen during construction and what it is that we need from you all property owners in order to continue with the project. Next slide, please. So what I want to do right now is go ahead and introduce the project team. We'd like to start with our Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District board members. In the back, we have President Chance Edmondson and Vice President Harvey Ryan with us today. From the Elsinore Valley Water District team, we have General Manager Greg Thomas back here in the corner, as well as Assistant General Manager Ganesh Krishnamurthy, the Director of Water Resources, Parag Kalaria. And then from our technical team at Elsinore Valley, we have Nelson Nuesca, who is our engineering manager. We have Joe McGee here with me, who's the principal engineer. He'll be talking to you more about the technical aspects of the project, as well as Brian Porcock in the back, who is our senior engineer. Next slide, please. So EDMWD secured funding from the Clean Water Revolving Fund, which provides low-cost financing so that we can go ahead and move forward with sewer treatment, recycling, stormwater management, and sewer system projects. It allows eligible recipients to complete these crucial infrastructure projects and addresses all the water quality needs. The funding is going to cover the cost of converting your septic system to EDMWD sewer system. I can't stress enough that this is pretty much a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's rare for the state to provide funding for a complete install like what they're doing here for us today. So it is something that it's very beneficial. Sedco Hill homes that opted in for the project before April 20th will be converted from septic to sewer. Next slide. So right here is the map of the project area. So it is for the properties along Mission Trail between Malaga, Lemon, and I-15. So again, if you sign that opt-in form, that's why we received the information for today. And all you have to do then is complete that right of entry form, which we'll talk about towards the end of the presentation. So now I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to Joe so that he can go into the construction piece.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Christina. My name is Joe. I work in the engineering group. I'll be talking over some more of the technical aspects of the project, and I'm in charge of working together with our consultants to make sure this job is successful through design and through construction. Next slide. So we'll start with, why is this project important? Septic systems leach nutrients and fecal coliform into the soil, which can contaminate the surrounding environment, including groundwater and surface waters. And it really doesn't matter which type of septic system that you have or utilize, each one ultimately percolates into the ground, which could cause that damage. Next slide. Continuing on this point, just a quick description of a septic sewer system here. The wastewater flows through your house to the tank and ultimately drains into the soil, and the groundwater, and ultimately potentially surface water, especially when many of these systems are in place over a small area, such as a targeted community like Sedco Hills and others that we had looked at. Ultimately, what happens is this water is percolating into the ground, ultimately contaminating groundwater. If that groundwater is pumped by anyone, neighbors, or utilities such as ourselves, treatment of that groundwater becomes much more expensive, which of course affects rates. Gravity sewer system, on the contrary, is fully contained. It takes the flow from the homes into piping and conveys it in a sewer system, typically in residential streets and collector streets to our treatment plant. Next slide. So what are the benefits of converting from your septic system to the district's sewer system? Improve general health, really by reducing exposure. Improve groundwater quality, like we just discussed. We can add more recycled water. Our treatment plant treats all delivery of septic system and sewer system flows to tertiary treated recycled water condition. Reduce water pollution in general. Reduce septic odors. Increase your property value now that you're on a gravity system or sewer system with a grinder pump, which we'll talk more about. You eliminate your septic system costs of maintenance and repair. And a big one is, as Christina described, this is a big opportunity for the future. It allows you to make improvements to your property, which could include an ADU. Something like that, as permitted by the county, will require you to connect to a gravity system, which will be implemented as part of this project. Quick project timeline. I want to go over a few items here with you guys, ultimately showing the total scale of this project. We have across the Sedco Hills community about 40,000 feet of pipe, almost 300 manholes that need to be installed, and then of course all of the private property work, which includes your laterals and or grinder pump tanks. We hope to go out as soon as possible. What that's looking like is advertising for construction early next year. The very first thing that will occur is the street work. The next thing that will occur is the work on the properties, which will include your lateral and or grinder pump. I wanted to point out that typically you'll see in street work, you've seen it many times around town, whether it's on streets for street improvements or other utility improvements. It's what I consider heavy construction. You're going to see the big excavators or backhoes that are on the streets. You'll see dump trucks, you'll see work trucks. Once we finish street work, the property work will scale down greatly. That will be much smaller equipment, including up to even hand digging, depending on how difficult some things are to access. And everyone's home will be treated differently on a case-by-case basis. But it's also important to note for you guys the number of notifications that we intend to do. When we get our contractor on board, we are working hand in hand with the County Department of Environmental Health. They permit removals of septic tanks. We will be working together with our selected contractor to reach out to everyone involved in the project, coordinate the on-site work, which essentially means we're gonna set up a time, visit the property with you, figure out and finalize the alignment of our lateral, do a reporting of your septic system. The county requires all of this to be provided to them in writing. Once that's done, like I said, we will then continue on to work in the street. The county requires us to do this assessment first. So you'll think there is a long time in between, and there will be. The street work is probably going to take about a year. And then we're going to be reaching out to you again to come back and say, hey, we're done with the street work. It's time for the lateral work. And like I said, we'll reach out to you specifically for scheduling of that. And then a third time will be when we are wrapping up and want to show you how things turned out. If we want to show you how to run the grinder pump system, which, as mentioned, there's a full unit outside, which is actually operatable right now. So what specifically are we going to do on your lot? To connect you into the gravity system within the street, we have to do several things. Primarily, get rid of the septic tank, which by county standards is to destruct it. There are several manners in which that we can destruct a tank. It depends on its condition and its material. That will be dictated to us at the time of observation and by the county inspector. Then we have to connect the actual tank area, once it's eliminated, to your house via the new lateral. So essentially, we're going to pick up the lateral that used to discharge to your tank, wrap it around wherever it may be, front of the house, back of the house, side of the house, and route it out to the street and connect it into the new piping system within the street. If your lot does require a grinder pump system, there's kind of a second level of effort there. Obviously, if you take a look at the unit outside, the grinder pump system requires an electrical connection. So we will also be taking a look at your panel, your electrical panel, and making sure that it has the capacity to receive this new system. So what is a grinder pump and how do I know if I need one? Primarily, as Christina mentioned, if you received information in your packet of outreach material, your lot was designated by the design team as very likely needing a grinder pump system. What it is a wastewater pumping unit, and it's used where gravity sewer service is not available. That's really just the crux of it. I'll show you a profile view on the next slide. But typically what happens is if your home is low, and what specifically requires it is if your home is lower than the sewer pipe. If your home is lower than the street, then you have a very good chance that you might be lower than the sewer pipe. The team has worked diligently for the design and throughout to try to minimize the count and the impact of this. But as you guys know very well in your community, hills is in the name, so it gets tough sometimes to flow certain directions. And if it is uphill, it will require to be pumped. So here's a quick little side view that I wanted to show with you. The grinder pump itself is a mechanical unit. It is very similar to an in-sink aerator. They call it a grinder pump so that it can move any type of solids purposely or unpurposely put into your pipes and then pass that through a pressure pipe up a slope and into the piping system within the street. It requires an electrical connection, like I said, which does mean there will be work in the property for the lateral, but also conduit for the electrical. And if you take a look on the unit outside, there's also a control box, which we can step through with you. But essentially, we'll find a good place for that. Most conveniently, that is mounted onto the side of your house, but it may be mounted near the grinder pump location. And the grinder pump, very similar to garbage disposal. Yeah, sorry, we already covered that. Next slide. I'll look on to the next. So the project covers the full work in the street, like I described. It covers the lateral work, and it does include the grinder pump work, which includes the installation of the unit, The vast majority of the unit is below grade. All you'll see is the lid, which will protrude up a little bit to make sure that you don't have overland flow from rain events or whatnot filling up your tank and unnecessarily running your pumps. And then, of course, the electrical control box. What we have elected to do as the district, because we understand this is a new system, it's very different from a septic system. Septic system has its maintenance challenges like we discussed. A grinder pump system has its maintenance challenges as well. One of the manner in which that we are hoping to ease that is to run what is called a duplex pumping system. And essentially what that means is 2 pumps. What's outside is a duplex pumping system. There are 2 pumps, only one will ever need to run at a time. They will cycle back and forth to reduce the runtime. And in addition, if one goes down, the other pump will continue to operate, gives you plenty of time to work with a local plumber to have that addressed. And in addition, we're also maximizing our storage time in the actual containment vessel that you see outside. Those come in many different sizes. We've elected to try to size that for what it would be a typical family of 4 for a full day. Because there are some concerns. This is a new system that if the power goes out, of course, you lose electricity, you lose pumping capacity, just like you'd lose your dishwasher or anything else. There is an alarm system on that pump. It's something that we can show you, something that we can test. There is a visible with a small flashing light and an audible. The audible will go away after a little bit, so it won't make all your neighbors too angry, but it'll definitely let you know that there is something that needs to be addressed. And a grinder pump there, the last bullet is the electrical feed required to run the pumps. It varies. The total cost could be about $50 per year. Like I said, it's very similar in operation and total horsepower draw as an InSinkerator. But it depends on your family size and house use. So what can you expect during construction? Our community outreach team will be in communication prior to the start of construction. And at all those points that I described in the project timeline, we will definitely be in communication. You're going to hear a lot from us. And even when you see our selected contractor and their logo on the truck, we will be reachable. If there's things that we need to discuss or work out, we will be there for you. But ultimately, once the project gets going, it's going to be just like any other construction project. It's going to be loud at times. It's going to be busy. It's going to be dusty, and it will be annoying. But ultimately, the end product is a great service to the district service area, to the homeowners, to your property value, and to the groundwater and nearby receiving waters. There will be some parking impacts as well, potentially. As you know well, some of the streets are fairly narrow, especially if we want to run a big excavator through there to get a very deep pipe constructed. We'll work with that out with you guys beforehand with plenty of notice that some of the cars may need to move. But that will be on a street-by-street basis. And then, of course, as part of the lateral work, we have a lot of on-property work like I described. We'll need to make sure that the homeowner has cleared the path and made sure that we're successful in getting those pipelines or conduits installed as dictated by our plan and as worked out together during the permitting process. And that will include your breaker panel. Like I said, if your lot has a grinder pump and we need to connect that for electrical service, we need to make sure that we can get to your breaker panel. If there's anything in the way, please make sure it's clear.
Okay, so what we need from you as a property owner. So each property owner that's listed on the property deed is going to need to sign the right of entry form. You should have received in the mail a packet that included the right of entry form already pre-filled out with all the property owner name information, the APN, and a couple of other legal information we needed to add. If you don't have that with you today, that's fine. We have blank forms and we have the information needed to fill out. But basically what that right of entry is a contract between you as a property owner and the district or the government entity, along with all of our subcontractors, to allow us to perform the construction on the property. It'll include details regarding what type of work we're going to do and whether or not we need to enter the property and what noticing we need to do. So construction, one of the biggest things to know is we will not be able to start construction until all of the right of entries are received. So if you've opted in, that's great. If we don't receive that right of entry form, we cannot complete the construction on your property. So it is very important that we receive that right of entry form. Next slide, please. Next. Oh, sorry. So like I said, they were mailed out to each property on the week of September 16th. So only completed right of entry forms are going to be accepted today. So that means we need signatures from all property owners on the document, in addition to copies of government issued IDs for all the property owners that are included on the deed. If it is incomplete, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to accept those today. We're going to have you complete those, and then you can either mail them. There was a self-addressed envelope that was included in the packet to the PO box, or you can swing by the district office and you can drop them off there. So we're asking that all those right of entry forms are submitted to us by November 30th so that we can proceed with the construction. Next slide. So there's some information there in case anybody has any questions at any time throughout construction. That is the construction hotline number, as well as the email address for the construction, for outreach for all of us. There's my information. There is a project manager for the outreach portion, as well as the website that is specific to the septic to sewer conversion project at EBMWD. Next slide.
Okay, so I know I mentioned that we weren't gonna take any questions today. If we have a little time, we will. We do have one question online. Hang on just a moment, and we're gonna ask that question so we can answer that question.
Yes, the question was, how will the contractors or the construction workers know how my property look like before construction to make sure it looks the same after construction?
Very good question. As part of the early permitting process, when our contractor is selected and we visit each of your homes and do a reconnaissance for the actual lateral work and the destruction work, and ultimately categorize the septic system information. At that same time, we will work together, take photos and otherwise a recording of existing conditions to make sure that your home property is not hurt by the installation of the project.
We have a little time, so I want to go ahead and take some questions from the audience here. Did you have a question, ma'am?
Yes, I have a few new neighbors, and they were wondering how this applies to them. They were wondering if the previous owner may have signed to want to get on the project before they decided to sell their house. Does this mean that they can also get in on it, or no?
So if there's a signed opt-in form for the property, then yes, that property was included in the project. So what we could do is we can touch base afterwards, and I'll take your information and we can go ahead and we can look at each property individually, or have those property owners contact the hotline, and we can go into more detail with them and let them know.
Thank you.
Ma'am in the back there?
Yeah, my question is regarding the grinder. Because he mentioned that you guys will check the panel, the electrical panel. When you check it, you're checking to validate that the grinder will be able to, they'll be able to partner together correctly. What if it's not able to do it?
So just to repeat the question for the folks online, the question was that we will be checking the panel when we go out to check the property. And the question was, are you checking to determine or ensure that the panel, the electrical panel, would be compatible with the grinder pump?
Yeah, in general, the short answer is the panel will be compatible. Really what we're checking is if the panel has capacity, which is probably what you're specifically after. And in those cases, it'll be case by case, but we would have to do a determination if the panel needs to be replaced, which is a possibility. If that is the case, that would obviously be much more of an impact to the home. It would require a power shutdown, which would need to be coordinated with the homeowner.
But you guys would cover that cost.
That would be included as part of the project if it arises.
That's
And then
only
we
if
had
you
a
need-
question.
That's only if you need a grinder pump.
Question in the back.
You said that the project would be property values. Project's gonna increase property values, so the properties be subject to reassessment afterwards.
That is a good question that unfortunately I do not know the answer to that. That is something that we're gonna have to, we'll get back to you on that. So we'll touch base afterwards and I'll get your information.
Yeah, I know what my property tax. is.
Yeah, and if that would be to the county, that's not something we would be responsible for, but I don't know the answer to that question. So we'll see what we can find out with something else, but I'll touch base with you.
And we have a question online here.
Question from an online Zoom participant is, if my driveway is concrete, will it be broken and replaced? Will it be patchwork or fully redone?
The project includes replacement of your concrete or asphalt drive through the trench that is required for the lateral, and that includes pavers, whatever we may be crossing. So we will repair concrete in the trench that is needed.
I'm gonna take two more questions. So I see you have a question here.
What are they going to do with the existing septic tanks? Abandoned in place, what does that look like?
Earlier described, that will be dictated by the county. It depends on the material of the tank and the condition of the tank. If it can be destructed and abandoned in place, what typically happens in that type of scenario is the top of the tank is removed entirely. The bottom is drilled with holes and then it's filled up. So the county's primary function in destruction of a septic tank, which includes abandonment as an option, is safety. Nothing could ever get inside that tank ever again. And then it will be backfilled and covered so you wouldn't even see it from your yard.
So the big concrete ones would be the top taking off, holes in the bottom and filled with rock and stuff.
That's correct. Concrete ones, the lids would be removed, all access would be removed, holes punched in the bottom, and it would be filled up.
Question here, ma'am, in the black.
Statement first on the taxes question, can you respond to everybody or somehow do an FAQ or something when you guys find out, because the dealers want to know that? Answer.
We'll definitely, once we get clarification, we'll add it to the FAQs.
Okay, and then number two, the question was if there's multiple units on that property that are going into a septic system, you guys are accounting for that as well, right?
I'm gonna repeat the question for folks online. So the question was, if there's multiple units on one parcel, will all units be connected?
Yes, that is correct. We will run the lateral as necessary to make sure each unit is connected, ultimately to a single lateral that will go out to the street, most likely, because essentially each property as an address is given a lateral and then a corresponding service from the district.
So all
There's
the
a question
illegal-
that,
I was just gonna say, so all the illegal dwellings on the properties won't get connected then, because if there's no mailing address to them?
only folks who've opted in will be connected. Question in the back there?
This may be hard to secure, but this may be hard to answer here, but I see on the entry agreement, number one, the easement granted expires until December 31st, 2030, instead of at end of construction. So specify time after that. Any reason for that?
A lot of those dates are mandated by the state because this is grant funding. There will be things that they may have to look at or confirm later on down the road. So we have to put those dates in there for the state's mandate.
Question here, ma'am?
Is there a reason as to why this location was chosen?
The question is there a reason why this particular community was chosen for this grant, and will this be extended to other neighborhoods in El Salvador?
So is there someone who wants to help me with why we chose this area? I can kind of fuddle my way through it, but I want to make sure we're giving correct answers here. This is why I bring the big guns with me.
I'll take this one. I hope you all can hear me. So we have about 40,000 sewer connections and 10,000 septic connections. Conversion, as you all can see, conversion from septic to sewer is not a small undertaking. It's a pretty big project, and these projects are also dependent on how much funding that is available. So we are prioritizing how we go about these things for the amount of funding that was available. Both these areas seem like a good fit for the amount of funding available. So that's how we've started on this one. And as more funding becomes available from the state, we will expand this to other areas.
Any other questions? No? Okay, oh, did you have a question? That's okay.
Will this solve this sort of smell problem that's kind of taking place around the corner?
The question was, will this solve or reduce the odor in the neighborhood?
Which corner?
Like, you guys know what I'm talking about, like Brandon, or like what's it called, Mission Trail and, there's that corner right down the street.
Is that the Summerly lift station?
Funky.
This
It moves, it kind of rotates,
depends on the wind.
depends on the wind, yeah.
This project specifically does not address that. It does address it in general, just by changing the manner in which these septic tanks would be leaching,
Yeah,
by then putting it in closed conduit pipeline. However, the district is undertaking another project right now. In fact, we're breaking ground as soon as next week on a brand new lift station, very large. It's replacing, I think, the lift station that you're referencing. So give us about 2 years and it will definitely be going away. That's completely separate, but that lift station will take the problem one completely offline. We're going to demolish it. And the new one is brand new, obviously further set back, but also we have odor scrubber technology and things like that. It should help tremendously.
okay, cool.
Okay, one more question. Ma'am in the back.
Yeah, I have a one-way in, one-way out dirt road. How is that construction gonna impact my neighbors getting in and out for work?
So the question was that she has a one-way road that's one way in and one way out, and she wants to know how that's going to work for construction.
I'd say the primary key, to be perfectly honest, is communication. We've done tight corridor construction. We've worked in one-way alleys many, many times. We're doing one, in fact, wrapping it up right now in the downtown area of Elsinore. It'll be difficult, but honestly, it's really communication. And what we do is we minimize the impact by using smaller equipment, where essentially if a car needs to get by, we're going to put a plate over that, which you see all the time in construction street work, let that car go by. And when you come up and want to return, we have to get out of the way, put the plate back down and allow entry. But entry will never be fully blocked from your home for more than a few minutes as we make sure that you have safe passage.
And I did see one more question, sorry. Sir.
What about curbs or sidewalks? Is that form part of the project?
The question is, will we construct curbs and sidewalks as part of the project?
We do not have any proposed new curb or sidewalk, only replacement of what's there. So if a lateral requires construction through, then that curb or sidewalk panel would be replaced as part of the project.
Okay, so now the fun part. Thank you all for sitting through this presentation and taking in this information. And we will be sharing this presentation also via email after the meeting. And also the meeting is being recorded. I probably should have said that first, and I apologize, but I didn't. We're now we have stations set up on either corner of the room here. These two sides, these two corners here are reserved for Spanish-speaking individuals. And we are going to be taking your signed right of entry forms along with a copy of your photo ID. So as Christina mentioned, we are taking full packets only. So if you have every component that we need today, we will take that from you. If you have something missing, we need you to go back home, gather everything you need, and then either mail it to us in the stamped envelope we sent you, or you can email it to us, or you can, you need to send us in the signed signature, the signed form, but you can email us a photo if you need to, but we also, you can drop it off at the water district as well. So we've set up some queues here so you can get in line, and we just want you to have your photo IDs ready and your documents ready so that we can get you in and out of here. And again, just a reminder, the grinder pump is set up out in the back here, so you can go take a look at it. It's fully functional, as we mentioned. So we'll show you how that works, and they'll answer questions there as well. The engineering team is here to answer questions, as well as the outreach team. So any questions you have, you can come to any of us. Thank you all for coming.